What does it mean to leave everyone else? Is there something, somewhere that clarifies this promise in wedding vows? I don't think so, but others seem to think otherwise. I was at work that day when Charlie Hughes returned to work. He had been sick with the flu for a few days, and I guess he realized that sitting at home alone could be quite boring. His wife worked, and his children were at school, so he had no one to talk to. Anyway, Charlie was moaning about the Oprah show he had watched the previous afternoon, where several married women were talking about how exciting it was to have lesbian affairs behind their husbands' backs. Charlie thought it was disgusting to appear on national television in front of women who were easily impressed by Oprah's sophistication and wealth. He wondered very keenly about these women's spineless husbands and how it would affect their marriages, and also what would happen to the divorce rate if, after watching the show, more women tried it. I think I had to agree with Charlie, and when I got home that evening, I probably let off a little steam in a conversation with my wife, Grace. She listened to me rant about it with a funny expression on her face, and I guess I should have realized that something was wrong, but I didn't immediately. When I finished, she simply turned away and shrugged her shoulders, as if dismissing my concern. "You shouldn't be so upset about it. I am sure that most women have not thought about this, and if they had, they would not have acted. What if they did that? It's not like she really cheated on her husband by doing this with another woman," she replied without looking at me. "I do not think so. Our wedding vows say to leave all others, not just those of the opposite sex. In my opinion, this is the same betrayal as giving your body to another man. Would you like to see me with another man?" "You're probably right, but that doesn't mean you'll share your love between two people. You'd save that for the person you're married to. Intimate sex should only be with a loved one. As a man and a faithful husband, my marriage is based on love, trust, and respect. If these three things are not there, then this is not a marriage, as far as I understand." She fell silent, looking out the kitchen window. I think I'm starting to suspect something. Her attitude and behavior told me that she was hiding something, and it had to do with the topic at hand. You can't live with someone for 23 years without studying their moods and not knowing when something is bothering them. Something was definitely bothering her. "Is there something you want to talk about, Grace?" "I think it's best for me to tell you a little about our situation. My wife, Grace, and I have been married for 23 years. We had a son, Mark, who had just graduated from MIT with an engineering degree and was living in Nashville working for a firm of consulting engineers. At 44, Grace was still a very attractive woman and kept in shape at a local health center. Standing 168 silmas barefoot, her slender 61 kilos figure fits into a beautiful feminine body with 34C breasts, her blonde hair cut fashionably short. She was a teacher at our local high school and was actively involved in school activities, especially those related to girls' education, sports, and social activities. I loved her passionately and was amazed by her love for me, her intelligence and dedication to her family and work. I'm Jim, a laid-back guy, 185 and 83 kilo. My appearance is probably average. The ladies didn't swoon when they saw me, but they did come at me a couple of times, so maybe I'm not completely lost. In any case, I ran to keep fit and was happy with my health and condition at 45 years old. With our son gone and the expenses associated with his upkeep and education over, we could enjoy life. We saved quite a lot of money each year because we wanted to retire in about 10 years, travel, and enjoy life as an adult. Our sex was still good at least twice a week, not as active as when I was younger, but not bad. I thought we were doing well. As I turned from the window to look at me, I saw her face and knew something was wrong. "What is the problem?" I asked, feeling horror fall over me. The look on her face was one of intense distress, and that's when I realized what the problem was, and it had to do with what I was ranting about when I came home from work. However, I wanted her to tell me about it. For the past few months, she and a fellow teacher, younger than herself, have been working together on a school project to develop curriculum for a new class focused on girls' health. This required, she told me, that they spend an evening or two each week at the other woman's apartment. Now, I remember that when she returned from these evenings, she would immediately go and take a shower before going to bed, but she was never interested in sex on these evenings. I didn't suspect anything at the time. Her attitude towards me has not changed. She has not become less caring or loving. She may have been more caring, to say the least. Sobbing, she suddenly turned away from me, hurried back to our bedroom, and closed the door. "Grace?" I shouted before she could close the door, but I received no answer. I was stunned. What the hell did she do? Lounging on the kitchen chair, I rested my head in my hands as tears began to roll down my cheeks. I couldn't believe what I was thinking, but it had to be true. Otherwise, she would never have reacted like that. She had an affair with another teacher. As I sat there, I thought about the 23 years we had been married and the wonderful life we had. I always wanted to have a daughter, but after the birth of my son, she was unable to have more children. Good times, love. Even sex were pleasant memories that seemed to fill our lives until now. Now what? I should have waited until she told me for sure. I would give her an hour in the bedroom to recover, and then we would talk. Wiping my eyes, I walked into the room and sat down in a chair. Closing my eyes, I prepared to wait. I knew it wasn't good, but I could feel the anger building inside me as I waited. About 45 minutes later, I heard the bedroom door open and she appeared in the doorway. Having settled down in a chair, I gestured to the sofa opposite me. "Sit down, Grace. I'm here to listen to what you have to say. Does this apply to you and Carla?" She looked like hell. Her eyes were red and watery as if she had been crying. Her hair was disheveled and she looked defeated. "I haven't seen her like this since her mother died." "Yes, and I'm so sorry, Jim. I convinced myself that it wasn't that bad. It was just sex with Clara, and I had no idea how you would feel about it. If you thought everything was fine and I wouldn't mind, why didn't you tell me about it, but hid it, Grace? Was it just sex? I can't believe you. You knew it was wrong, but you still did it behind my back. Was the sex exciting, or was it the fact that you thought you could hide it from me that was exciting? Just like those women on Oprah, everyone is horny because they had illicit sex with another woman. Well, you can just go live with your mistress, Grace, because you're leaving here. Pack your things and leave. You broke our marriage vows, as far as I'm concerned, and we are no longer married. So you can live with your mistress and not hide anything. Please, Jim, please. We can work around this. We can go for a consultation. Our marriage should not end because of a misunderstanding." "Misunderstandings?" I shouted back in rage. "Do you not understand? It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was open and outright deception, lies, and infidelity. This was not a misunderstanding. I'll give you 10 minutes to pack your things and get out of here. If you're not out of here by then, I'll throw your treason out the door. Please, Jim, can't we talk about this calmly? This is my home, too. If you want to argue about who stays and who goes, get a lawyer, but you're leaving here because I can't guarantee your safety if you stay. You have 9 minutes left." Crying, she left the room and returned to our bedroom, where I heard her taking a suitcase from the closet and then the bureau drawers opening and closing. I was surprised, but in less than 10 minutes, she packed a suitcase with business clothes on hangers. Her eyes were still red and watery as she walked towards the door that led to the garage. "I'll be with my sister. Please call me when you think I can come home," she told me as she walked past. I just looked at her and didn't answer. A few seconds later, I heard the garage door open and her car start. Then she drove away and I was left alone. I was glad she didn't go to Carla. After she left, I just sat and thought about what I should do, but I couldn't come to any conclusion. Finally, I got up and made myself a sandwich to keep something in my stomach. Grace had already prepared dinner, but I didn't feel like eating too much. My stomach was in turmoil as I tried to sort through my emotions. What do I want to do? Divorce? Should I see a psychologist? Get back together? Can I trust her again? Do I want to get back together? All these thoughts were running through my head in disarray, and I could not arrange them in a logical order. I was sitting in the living room in front of the TV, but not watching it, when the phone rang. Reaching, I picked up the phone and heard, Betty, Grace's little sister. "What's going on, Jim?" Grace arrived with her luggage and something was wrong with her. She can't or won't tell me what happened. Because of her, me, Jake, her husband, and children are offended by you. I think you kicked her out. It's true, Betty. I found out that she was having an affair. Damn it, you must be joking. Grace? I cannot believe this. Who is this, you know? This is the teacher she worked with on the school project, Carla. Another woman? I didn't know she was a lesbian. When did it happen? In the last month or so, I think. Well, it was just another woman. Aren't you going to get counseling and take her back? You women, I take it just as seriously as if she was doing it with another guy. This not only shows that she doesn't respect me and our marriage vows, but also that I can't meet her needs, that she should go somewhere else to get her needs met. It's a real slap in the face as far as I'm concerned, but I haven't decided what to do yet. I just know I want her out of here until I decide what to do next. Okay, Jim, we'll leave her here for a few days, but if you don't pick her up by then, she'll have to find somewhere else to live. The children will live together until she leaves. Have you told Mark what's going on yet? No, and I don't intend to until I decide what to do. He doesn't need to know yet. Okay, Jim, I'm really shocked by this. I'll go and talk to her now that I know what happened. Okay, Betty, keep me posted, and I'll let you know what I'm going to do as soon as I can. That night, I had a restless sleep. Since our marriage, we have slept in the same bed every night, except 2 or 3 times when I had to go away on business for the night, or when she went to see her mother. I missed her presence next to me. Finally, I dozed off, trying to gather my thoughts about what I needed to do. When I woke up in the morning, I realized that today was Saturday, and I remembered why Grace was not at home. This saddened me immensely when I remembered and then thought that today was Saturday, and I would not be able to contact any divorce lawyer for several days. Sitting over a cup of coffee after breakfast, I realized that my anger had subsided and I could finally begin to move forward with the problem. I think I needed to know why she did what she did in the first place, and maybe she wasn't the one to explain it to me. I thought we had a good marriage and that we found satisfaction in each other in bed. Why did she do this? She thought I wouldn't mind. Did she really think that? Or was it the only thing she could come up with to justify her cheating? Was she having other affairs that I didn't know about? If I forgive her, will I be able to trust her again? Was our marriage worth saving? We were married for 23 years, and I looked forward to growing old together. Hell, I was too old to try another relationship, but I wasn't about to become a cuckold. That's for sure. Finally, I decided what I had to do before I came to a final decision, and reached for the phone. Betty, this is Jim. You can connect to Grace on the internal phone. I have come to a decision, and I want you both to hear it. Shouldn't you be talking to your wife, Jim? I don't think I should interfere. We've talked, and I know she deeply regrets what she did. I know she wants to tell you how sorry she is, but she's afraid to come home and tell you that she would do anything to get through this. I'm glad she's so remorseful, I replied sarcastically, but she might not like what I want her to do before I see her again. I want you to be present during the conversation and make sure she understands what she has to do. So please put her on the phone. Okay, Jim. 1 minute. Jim? Hello, Grace. Are you on the line with Betty? Yes, I'm here. Okay, Grace, here's what I need before we can talk about reconciliation. I want you to undergo a full psychiatric evaluation to determine why you did what you did. I need to know why, and I can't accept any of your excuses. Before I can trust you again, I need assurances that this will never happen again. Can you hear me, Grace? Yes, I hear you, Jim. I'll do it, but it may take a while. Can I come home? I would prefer not to see you again until I see that there is a chance for reconciliation. Find yourself a furnished apartment. I'll leave tomorrow afternoon and you can come and get your things. After that, I'll change the locks. Okay, Jim, she sobbed. Betty, I want you to report to me on her progress with the psychiatrist. I would like to complete this in due course. Okay, Jim, but you have to understand that she is my sister, and I am not going to inform her. All I want to know is whether she goes to a psychiatrist. If not, I will contact a divorce lawyer. Okay, Jim, This is all? No, I want you to quit your job and break all contact with Carla. Oh, Jim, I will no longer see or communicate with Carla. I will ask another teacher to work with me on our program, and we will do the work during my work period at school. Please don't ask me to give this up. I will do what you ask, but I beg you not to force me to do it. Okay, Grace, I'll back off, but I'll feel safer if you transfer to another school next school year. I will do so, Jim. Thank you. You really ruined everything, Grace. I know, and I'm very sorry. Did you tell Mark? Not yet, but I think he should know that we don't live together. I'll tell him that we've decided to take a little break from each other. He will know there is something more, but I won't tell him. You can, if you want. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. We said goodbye, and I went to mow the grass. While I was doing this, I was thinking about my marital problems and how to keep an eye on Grace. When I finished mowing the grass, I went into the house, sat down at the computer, and began looking for GPS tracking equipment. I found what I wanted and placed an order for express delivery. With it, I could follow Grace wherever she went in her car, as long as she was within a 5-mile radius of my home or my laptop. Now I needed to plan how to install the transmitter in Grace's car. It was expensive but necessary to keep an eye on her since I couldn't count on her sister to keep me in the loop. In the evening, the phone rang, and from the caller ID I realized it was Carla. My rage returned when I picked up the phone. Yes, I said. Jim, this is Carla. Is Grace at home? She didn't come to school today and I wondered if she was sick. We have a meeting today. Grace doesn't live here now, Carla, I told her through clenched teeth. This slut is looking for a new home. I'm surprised she didn't contact you, her mistress, to find a place to live. Please don't call here again, and in the future, stay away from me. Oh my God. She then hung up, and I was left with the dial tone. I was actually glad she called, because it meant Grace wasn't trying to contact her. However, I thought that if Grace suddenly decided to end our marriage and go live with her mistress, I should protect my financial assets. It will be a simple matter to get everything back if our marriage continues. So on Monday morning, I went to the bank and transferred half of our joint accounts to new accounts with my name on them. I did the same thing with our non-IRA investments. When I returned to work, I called our insurance agent and asked that Grace be removed from my beneficiary list, replacing her name with our son Mark's. I called our family lawyer and asked him to prepare a new will with Mark as the sole beneficiary of my property. I also asked him the name of a good divorce lawyer, and he expressed regret and referred me to Donna Sinclair as the best in the area. After the conversation ended, I called Ms. Sinclair's office and made an appointment for the next day. Although I didn't know if I would end up getting a divorce, I thought it would be a good idea to sit down and talk to her and figure out my options. By immersing myself in work, I was able to forget about my marital problems, but when I returned home in the evening to an empty house, it depressed me. The call from Betty cheered me up somewhat. She said that Grace had made an appointment with a psychiatrist and would be coming for her first visit on Thursday. She also said that Grace did not show up for work that day, but might return tomorrow, and that she was gradually coming to her senses, having stopped crying constantly. Okay, it's good to know she's suffering. The GPS tracking equipment arrived on Wednesday, and after reading the instructions, I began setting it up and installing the necessary software on my laptop. The system will automatically notify me via cell phone if established boundaries are crossed. Once everything was ready, I installed the tracking transmitter on my car and drove it. It worked fine. Next, I needed to install the transmitter on Grace's car. The tracking transmitter was very small and had the ability to be magnetically mounted. That evening, I visited Betty and found Grace's car parked in their driveway. It was a simple matter of crawling under the rear, attaching the transmitter to a steel bar behind the bumper, and driving away. With fresh batteries, it could work for up to a month. This would be enough time for me to find out everything I need. Namely, will Grace still date Carla? My days were now filled with waiting for my cell phone to tell me that Grace had moved beyond the boundaries I had set in the computer program. I specifically set the boundaries in the program so that Carla's apartment was outside the boundaries. and most other innocent places were inside the boundaries. I figured Carla wouldn't go to Betty's house, but if they met, it would be at Carla's apartment. What I couldn't control was if they met somewhere else, but I felt like there was no point in that. But what makes sense when you're dealing with a cheater? Betty kept me up to date on Grace's progress with her psychiatrist appointments, but other than the tracker, all I knew was that she went to work every day at her school, where she might have met Carla. However, judging by the tracker, she did not visit Carla in the evenings. We'll have to see what happens when she moves into her own home. About a week and a half after she left home, Betty informed me that Grace was moving into a furnished apartment and would no longer be able to keep me informed of Grace's appointments with her psychiatrist. I was now dependent on the tracker to keep me up to date. When Grace moved into the apartment, I changed the boundaries of the program to include a new location, school, Betty's office, and a psychiatrist. I continued to watch her. The only thing the tracking device didn't tell me was if Carla came to her apartment. However, I didn't think Grace would allow it since I knew what Carla's car looked like and could see it outside her apartment. I did go to her place in the evenings, but I never saw Carla's car there. Finally, one evening, Grace called me. "Jim, I just wanted you to know that I have had 3 sessions with the psychiatrist, and she would like you to come to the next session on Thursday afternoon so she can explain some things to you. Can you come?" "I'll come, Grace. When and where?" I knew where she was using the beacon, but I wanted to ask so that she wouldn't suspect that I was following her. "At 4 p.m. in room 204 at Medical Plaza, west on Grave Street. Thank you so much for supporting me, honey. I want everything to be resolved as soon as possible." I heard her son and then said, "You have no idea how much I missed you." "Okay, Grace. See you on Thursday." On Thursday afternoon, I arrived early at the psychiatrist's office and had to sit with Grace in the waiting room for a few minutes. I was hoping that when we got out of there, we could go home together. When we finally entered the psychiatrist's office, she asked us to sit in an alcove in the corner of the office where there was a couch with an easy chair opposite her. She waved her hand at us and sat down in a chair. The psychiatrist was a pleasant-looking woman about our age with a beautiful body. She seemed to exercise to keep fit. "Jim, I'm glad to finally meet you. As you know, Grace and I have had 3 sessions now, and I think we need to talk about her visits here. Firstly, could you tell me what you expect to get out of this? Grace told me what you told her, but I would like to hear it from you. You know that Grace had an affair with another woman, and I cannot and do not want to make a distinction in relation to an affair with a man. I'm not sure she sees it the same way I do, but I look at it as a serious violation of our marriage contract. I want to know if her actions were due to a mental disorder or what could have caused her to break her wedding vows. And if so, if there is a way to recover from it so that she will never be tempted to do so again. I can forgive her wrongdoing and move on with our marriage if I feel like I can trust her again. I understand your concerns about your marriage and how important trust is to you. However, you should know that psychiatry deals with mental illness, and I have determined that Grace does not suffer from a mental illness that requires psychiatric care or treatment. She has normal mental reactions and some minor problems, but no illness. I would recommend a psychologist or marriage counselor as the best remedy for your marital problems." Okay, she doesn't have a mental illness, but why did she suddenly start a relationship with someone else? Or am I wrong? I asked, turning to face Grace. Was this your first time with someone else? Oh, Jim, there was never anyone but you, and I really regret my affair with Carla. I should have believed her. Grace was not one to hide her feelings easily, especially in a stressful situation. I'll try to answer your question, Jim, without unnecessary psychobabble, the psychiatrist continued. From a psychological point of view, Grace could feel that she was missing something in her life. When a woman reaches 40, she finds it very difficult to accept that her appearance may fade, and she becomes very susceptible to suggestion and seduction. In addition, today our society is increasingly accepting of different lifestyles, which tend to challenge previous taboos associated with sexual life. She has simply downplayed in her mind the importance of morals regarding her relationship with a person of the same sex and how it relates to your marriage. I know that you take your wedding vows very seriously, and Grace has forgotten this fact, and she is paying for it. Hopefully, not at the cost of losing my marriage. You know she will never repeat this mistake. Now she is completely focused on doing everything possible to succeed. I would say that now you can trust her unconditionally. I would again recommend that you both see a marriage counselor and get your marriage back on track. You've been married for 23 years, and I know you've both invested too much in each other and your marriage to give it all up now. Does this solve your problems? I think I can accept your assessment of the situation, but I understand that you consider my strict adherence to our wedding vows to be unique. Is there a reason for this? When we say the words, leaving all others, what is unique about that? She looked stunned for a moment and was momentarily speechless. I'm sorry you got that impression. Loyalty in marriage is very important, and I didn't mean to imply anything when I mentioned your strict interpretation of these words. She apologized. Can you give another interpretation? No, I probably can't. Are you married? Yes, I am married, and it seems to me very happy. I noticed that you don't wear wedding rings. I wear them when I'm not working professionally with a patient. I don't want them to be a distraction. I noticed that she was slightly flushed and nervous during our conversation and acted like someone who had something to hide. I didn't pursue this topic further, but it showed me that some people can take their wedding vows too lightly. Thank you, doctor. I think we'll go since I need to go and help Grace pack her things and get home, I said, as I turned to Grace and hugged her. Tears streamed down her face as we said goodbye. Grace returned home that evening, and after dinner I helped her unpack some things so we could go to bed. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get aroused, but the sight of her body was all I needed to restore our marital intimacy. The next morning we had breakfast together before going about our business and smiled and laughed together like newlyweds. Still a little shy, but seemingly enjoying the newfound relationship. As I packed up my laptop to take it to the car, I thought about the tracker still installed on Grace's car and decided that I would leave it there for a while, despite the professional opinion of the psychiatrist. However, I will have to restore the boundaries and replace the batteries in the beacon. I was confident that I could now trust Grace, but we still had a consultation to finally resolve the trust issue, and until then, it would not hurt to monitor the situation. We started seeing a marriage counselor, and after 2 months of seeing each other, we felt more comfortable together. My tracking system showed no unusual or suspicious activity on her part, and I began to relax. She started seeing the psychiatrist again on Wednesday evenings because Grace felt she needed therapy, and she felt comfortable with the psychiatrist, who agreed to do therapy with her, even though it was not her area of expertise. I changed my alert boundaries to accommodate the need for trips to the psychiatrist's office. Grace told me that she applied to transfer to another school in the district for next year and was confident that she would get it, even though she would have to travel further each day. I felt it would be worth it to keep her away from Carla. One evening, after Grace had left for a psychiatrist appointment, I was sitting at my desk with my laptop on and monitoring software running. I was always fascinated by the technology that allowed me to monitor her car. Grace now went to evening appointments with a psychiatrist on Wednesdays so as not to leave work early. I noticed that she arrived at the office for an appointment, and a short time later, her car pulled out of the parking lot, drove 2 blocks up the street, and parked again. I tried to remember what was on this street, such as a restaurant or something else that could explain this movement, but all I could remember was that there was a motel at or near this address. It was within the boundaries set by my cell phone, so if she had gone there earlier, I would not have been alerted. I checked the phone book and confirmed that this address was the location of a Best Western motel. I was stunned. What the hell is she doing there? Realizing that I needed more information, I walked out, got into my car, and headed to the motel. When I got there, I made sure that her car was indeed parked at the motel. Tears welled up in my eyes as I sat and waited for her to return. An hour and a half later, I saw her and the psychiatrist leave the room on the first floor next to her car and drive away. During the time I waited, my rage grew and my thoughts turned to revenge. If I were to face them now, I would have to give up any thought of decent retribution. Once they left, I went to the motel office and found the night clerk. He looked like he was willing to accept a little extra reward when I approached him. I took a $50 bill out of my wallet and held it out where he could see it. The group that just left room 125. Can you tell me who checked in there for tonight? He looked at the $50 before answering. I really shouldn't tell you this. I'm sure they shouldn't, but can you still tell me? I asked, pushing $50 across the counter towards him. Taking the bill and placing it in his pocket, he operated the computer keyboard and announced the name of the psychiatrist and the information that she had paid in cash. Looking back at the monitor, he reported that she had been renting a room once every 2 weeks for the past 6 weeks. I then told him my wife's name and asked if she had stayed there. After a short consultation with the computer, he reported that she had paid for the alternative media and used our credit card. Perhaps it was a mistake on her part, which I thought could be to my advantage. She usually kept an eye on our finances, so maybe she thought she could slip past. Slipping him another $50, I asked for a copy of 6 weeks' worth of registrations on both sides. It only took him a few minutes to print out the information and give it to me. I expect them to be back next week, I told him. Will you be on duty then? Yes, I work a regular shift. I would like to meet with you at the end of the week to work through something with you that would be beneficial to both of us. A plan was forming in my mind, and I needed a couple of days to work out the details. I'll be here after 6, from Monday to Friday, he told me. Okay, I'll probably be back on Friday, I told the clerk, leaving quickly to make it home before Grace. I didn't want her to suspect that I might be following her. The next day, I called divorce attorney Donna Sinclair, told her what I had unexpectedly discovered, and asked her a few questions about privacy laws. Then I called a private investigator who specialized in electronic surveillance and made an appointment with him for the afternoon. Friday night, I was back at the Best Western Motel and talking to the friendly receptionist. My excuse to Grace was that I needed to buy some milk from the store. Walking into the motel, I told the receptionist that I wanted to rent a room on the first floor for a week. When my wife came in on Wednesday to pay and check into the room, I wanted the clerk to give her the key to the room I had rented. After she left, he was supposed to give me the original registration documents and credit card. He indicated that he had no problem with this since she was my wife and was using my number. I gave him 100 left. On Tuesday morning, I took a lunch break from work and met the detective at the motel. We went into the room I rented and showed him what I had in mind. He said that he had done similar surveillance before and practically knew what was needed. He will hide 2 digital mini cameras in the room. The main subject of filming will be the bed. One camera is for close-ups and the other is for monitoring the room. He'll hide the transmitter in the closet, behind a few extra blankets. The system will be controlled by a remote control that he can control from his car outside, where the recording device will be located. I left him to do his own thing and went back to work. Meanwhile, at home, I tried to act normal, but it was difficult when I thought about her cheating and how the psychiatrist misled me. I was going to make my revenge as destructive as possible for both of them. I was embarrassed that Grace hid her infidelity so well from me. She acted as if there was nothing in her life except home and work. In fact, I thought she acted exactly the same when she went out with Carla. I never knew about it until she got stressed. After Grace left for a psychiatrist appointment on Wednesday evening, I watched on the tracking program as she repeated what had happened the week before. She picked up her mistress and went to the Best Western Hotel. Now all I could do was sit and wait. I pretended to be asleep when she got home, so we didn't talk while she undressed and quietly slid into bed. I think she didn't want to talk either. The next morning, I got up and left home early, stopping for breakfast at IHOP before heading to work. I've done this before, so I didn't think it would alarm Grace. Shortly after 10 a.m., my guy from the detective agency called me and said he had what I wanted on DVD and asked if I wanted to stop by his office first to watch it. Having said what I wanted, I took time off from work, explained to my boss that I had personal matters, and went to his office. The camera showed exactly what I was hoping for and with great clarity. Normally watching two women making love would turn me on, but this time, knowing who the participants were made me very angry. When the detective handed me his large bill, I wrote out a check for the full amount with gusto. I then took the DVD to the divorce lawyer and we watched it together in her office. She nodded her head when it was over and said that she thought it was an excellent job and completely adequate for what she was going to do. I also gave her copies of my hotel reservation information. I asked how long it would take for Grace to receive the divorce papers accusing her of adultery, and if they could be served at her school. She said that it would be 2 days, and for an additional fee, they could be given directly in the classroom. I told her to do so. Then I asked about the psychiatrist. The lawyer told me that she could be sued for alienation of affection, but the most important thing was to have her medical license revoked on ethical grounds. She'll have to press charges against the psychiatrist with the state licensing board. We could also inform the psychiatrist's husband about his wife's infidelity and see what he wants to do. I asked if I could handle notifying my husband. The lawyer offered to give me a copy of the DVD and registration information. If they had an open marriage or the husband didn't think his wife making love to another woman was that important, the matter might have ended there. My lawyer made copies of the DVD and registration information before I left her office, and I set about the task of finding out who the psychiatrist's husband was while I waited for the papers to be served. It didn't take long, but as I expected, they weren't in the phone book, so I had to look elsewhere. A friend who was a doctor made inquiries about him at the local medical society, and I quickly had a name, address, and telephone numbers for work and home. He was an architect with an office in the city center. In order not to ruin the surprise I was going to give his wife and myself, I decided to wait until he was contacted after the documents were presented. The day finally came, and my lawyer called me at work the day before to tell me it would happen the next morning. I quickly arranged for a friend to come to my house with a truck the next morning after Grace left for work to help me move. I have already rented a furnished apartment near my work. This time, I was going to give Grace a place to live. I didn't want to live with things that reminded me of 23 years of my life that I was going to write off as a loss, except for our son. I wanted to leave the house with the few things I needed before 10 o'clock, because I figured she wouldn't be able to stay at school after being served and would return home quickly. We loaded the truck by 9:45 and left. Before I left my wedding ring on the kitchen table. When we got to the furnished apartment I'd rented, my friend helped carry my meager belongings inside, then wished me luck and left. While I was unpacking my things, my mobile phone rang. Checking my caller ID, I saw it was Grace and answered, "Jim, why did you do this? Why did you make me serve in my class? I'm now the laughingstock at school and I'll probably lose my job," she sobbed. "If you wanted a divorce, Grace, why didn't you tell me? You should have known that I would never let you cuckold me again. Things would be much easier if you told me you wanted a divorce so you could pursue your other interests, and we could part ways amicably. You left me no choice but to make this as ugly as possible for you and your mistress." "My mistress? What did you do?" she sobbed. "After she responds to my lawsuit against her for alienation of affection, she will fight to keep her license in the state and will likely end up getting divorced." My God. My God. "Grace, I don't want you to call me again. If you have something to tell me, do it through your lawyers. I'm going to call our son tonight and let him know what's going on with us. And I'm not going to stall. You destroyed our marriage and our lives. I hoped that someday we would retire. But now everything is lost. Maybe Ofra will pay you to tell your story on her show. I needed to insert this barb." Before we hang up, I continued, "Can you tell me why you got back together with another woman?" This shouldn't have happened. She called me one day after our meeting in her office and asked if I would like to meet with her in the evenings at her office for consultations. She thought I might have a lesbian fixation. When we met, she suggested we act out some of the things I'd done with Carla, and the next thing I knew, I was hooked again. I'm really sorry. As I hung up the phone, I heard uncontrollable crying on the phone. The divorce went through, and it was such a big deal that Grace moved to Nashville to be with our son. He really didn't want her around, but she was his mother and he couldn't divorce her like I did. He told me that she got together with another woman there, and I think that's what she wanted all along. The psychiatrist lost her license to practice in the state, and her husband divorced her. The alienation of affection lawsuit brought me $100,000, and I bought a cabin on a lake a few hours away so I could pursue my hobby of fishing. I found another woman who hates Ofra as much as I do, and we get along great together. We're getting married next week, and I hope she and I will have a happy retirement someday. We will spend our honeymoon in the cabin, as she also loves fishing. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.